Mobility stands for shift, change and movement. The change may be of a place or from one position to another. Further, change is value-free, i.e. it cannot be said that change is for good or bad. When we prefix social along with mobility, it would imply that people or individual occupying a social position move to another position or status. In the social ladder, this movement may be upward or downward, or it may be intergenerational or intra-generational. In short, social mobility stands for change in the position of an individual or a group of individuals from one status to another. On mobility, Sorokin was the first sociologist who wrote a book, Social and Cultural Mobility. He was of the opinion that there is no society which is closed caste system in India, and no society which is completely open class system. He further contended that no two societies are exactly same in the amount of movement allowed or discouraged. Further, the speed of movement or change may differ from one period of time to another. The rate of change depends upon the level of modernization of a given society. As defined by Barber, social mobility refers to movement, either upward or downward between higher or lower social classes, or more precisely, movement between one relatively full-time, functionally significant social role and another that is evaluated as either higher or lower. This movement is to be conceived as a process occurring over time, with individuals moving from one role and social class position to another because of what has happened to them in various kinds of social interaction. Mobility arises in social interaction, as each individual reacts to others in a changing series of social roles. In this sense, mobility provides the individual with more or less of the benefits which his economy and society have to offer. A rickshaw puller's son becomes a lawyer, a clerk's son becomes a doctor. In each case, a change in role between father and son provides the latter with more of the good things of life. Mobility may be considered in different senses, such as a change in occupation that involves a consequent change in status. B. A promotion within the same occupational group. C. The accumulation of seniority within a given occupation. D. A change in occupation from one generation to another, as from father to son. Types of mobility. Change of social position of an individual or group of individuals takes different forms and shapes. At one period of time there would be one type of mobility, and another period of time it can be another type. Each of the following types are not exclusive, but they may overlap. It is only for the purpose of convenience and analysis they are given different labels. 1. Horizontal mobility. Under this type of social mobility, a person changes his or her occupation, but the overall social standing remains the same. Certain occupations like doctor, engineer, and professor may enjoy the same status, but when an engineer changes his occupation from engineer to teaching engineering, he has horizontally moved from one occupational category to another. But no change has taken place in the system of social stratification. In other words, horizontal mobility is the transition of an individual or social object from one social group to another situated on the same level. While explaining horizontal mobility, we are mainly referring to movement of individuals from one position to another of more or less equal prestige. 2. Vertical mobility. Vertical mobility refers to any change in the occupational, economic, or political status of an individual or a group which leads to change of their position. In the words of Sorokin, by vertical social mobility is meant the relations involved in transition of an individual or a social object from one social stratum to another. In simple words, vertical mobility stands for change of social position either upward or downward, which can be labeled as ascending or descending type of mobility. When a big businessman meets with losses in his business and is declared bankrupt, he occupies a low status. On the other hand, if a small businessman with occupational skills of money and manipulation becomes an industrialist, he occupies a higher position in the social ladder. Hence his position improves in the hierarchical order. Vertical mobility is intensive in relatively open societies. 3. Upward mobility. When a person or a group of persons move from lower position to upper position, it is called upward mobility, e.g. a person belonging to a lower caste and occupying a lower position after winning elections becomes a minister and occupies a higher position. He may not be able to change his caste, but with his economic and political power he may move upward. For example, Yadavs in India stand as a testimony to this fact. For the individuals involved, there are many social and psychic costs of upward mobility. Some of the costs are obvious, as men and women break under the strain of a consistent drive for success. 4. Downward mobility. Downward mobility indicates that one loses his higher position and occupies a lower position. We can take the example of an individual who is an engineer and occupies a respectable position in the society because of his occupational position, education, and maybe caste. If he is caught for accepting bribe or has committed a sin or has done something wrong, he may be sentenced to jail, or members of his caste may outcast him, and as a criminal or as an outcast he may occupy a lower position vis-a-vis position he was occupying earlier. Under the traditional Indian system, if a lady of higher Brahmin caste married a man of Sudra caste, not only the man and woman were outcasted but their children were declared as chandals. Downward mobility is more stressful for persons who suffer a drastic decline in station position. Men who enjoy orderly and consistent career tend to make a stable personal, family and community adjustment. Men who are unable to do so are more vulnerable to the most extreme form of personal disorganization, namely suicide. 5. Intergenerational mobility. This type of mobility means that one generation changes its social status in contrast to preceding generation. However, this mobility may be upward or downward, e.g. people of lower caste or class may provide facilities to their children to get higher education, training and skills. With the help of these skills, the younger generation may get employment in higher position. If the father is a shoemaker but his son after acquiring education becomes a clerk or a doctor or an engineer, this would be called upward intergenerational mobility. Similarly, a family of Brahmins may be engaged on traditional occupation of teaching and performing rituals, but its younger generation is neither intelligent nor follows the family occupation. They become daily wagers, then the younger generation has downward intergenerational mobility. 6. Intra-generational mobility. This type of mobility takes place in lifespan of one generation. This can be further divided into two: a. Change in the position of one individual in his lifespan. B. Change in the position of one brother but no change in the position of another brother. A person may start his career as a clerk. He acquires more education and skills. Over a period of time, he becomes an IAS officer or a professor. In this way he moves up and occupies a higher social position than the one with which he had started his career. His brother may have also started his career as a clerk but did not occupy higher position in his lifespan and continued to remain at the same position. Hence, within the same generation we find that one brother changes his position and other brother does not. 7. Occupational mobility. Occupational mobility means change from one occupation to another. Different occupations are hierarchically arranged because the incumbent of these occupations gets different economic rewards and enjoys different power, prestige and privileges based on the economic returns, authority and prestige. These occupations are stratified or hierarchically arranged. When a person or a group of persons move from occupations of lower prestige to occupations of higher prestige, this is called upward vertical mobility. Similarly, if an individual or a group of individuals from occupations of higher prestige take up occupations of lower prestige, then this occupational mobility is called downward vertical mobility. From a clerk to an officer is upward vertical occupational mobility. From a clerk to a peon or a smuggler is downward vertical occupational mobility. Occupational mobility, in short, stands for change of occupation of lower prestige to higher and vice versa.